Before we get started with this episode, we've got something that we're really excited to tell you about. It's something near and dear to our hearts, and it's film because we love watching film and we love talking about film, and we sympathize with those of you out there who think you may have watched everything on Netflix, you watched everything on Prime. You haven't, but there's so much out there to enjoy, and there is a great streaming service that we do have to recommend to you called Film Movement Plus. And you could set filmmovementplus.com, very obviously, and it really has a unique and diverse selection of not just world cinema, but documentary, some old classics as well. There is some really great stuff over there that I cannot recommend enough. And I mean, they rotate their stuff in and out every month, and there is a movie that's hitting their service. Well, it's hit their service. It is on there right now, and it's one of our personal favorites in the past couple of years. It is called The Third Murder from director Hirozaku Koreeda, and who those of you who don't know who Koreeda is, he's directed films like Shoplifters, like Father Like Son, After the Storm, which are all really fantastic sort of humanistic dramas. But here he has a little bit of a change of pace, and we get like a procedural, we get a crime story, and it follows this jaded defense attorney who takes on the case of a murder robbery suspect, but things go a little things go a little shifty because he eventually learns that this man served jail time for another murder even 30 years ago, and even though his chances of winning the case are low, and his client admits the guilt, there is sort of the death penalty is ligging over there, and it creates a lot of problems for him. But the more he digs into the case, and the more he hears about sort of the victim's family and about the guy who did the robbery, things are not necessarily what they seem, and he begins to doubt if the man he's trying to defend for murder is even a murderer after all, and it's a fantastic piece of cinema. I don't think I was doing it enough credit right there, but Koreeda is one of the absolute best filmmakers coming out of Japan these days. And if you want to do yourself a favor and catch up on some fantastic modern Japanese cinema, I cannot recommend that film enough. And it is because it is one of the best ones that's basically out there today. I mean, he really is a master of the modern moving image, and well, we can't talk about him enough. He's just one of those fantastic filmmakers. And there's another fantastic filmmaker uh, with who's having a film jump on the service, and it's director John Scheinfeld, who we recently talked to actually about his Sergio Mendes film, but his film, Who is Harry Nielsen and Why is Everybody Talking About Him, is hitting Film Movement Plus on Harry Nielsen's birthday on June 15th. And it's, again, if you're a fan of the Rock Doc, this is definitely going to be one for you that I do recommend you check out. But there are these films, and there is so very much more that, I could babble on for quite some time. And, well, you've heard me babble on, but like I said, there's great music docs, there's great foreign film. There's some classic stuff too. It really is for the cinema lover, probably the premier streaming service out there that you may not necessarily know about. I like to think of it as maybe the best kept secret, but I'm hoping that it's not going to be a secret much longer because it is a truly fantastic service which we cannot recommend enough. And because, you're such loyal listeners of In the Seats With, and we know that you love film because you're listening to us right now. You can sign up for Film Movement Plus over at filmmovementplus.com for a mere $5.99 a month, which, let's face it, it's the price of a Starbucks coffee, which most of us aren't getting every morning now anyway. So would you rather have sort of the love of cinema washing over your life, or would you rather have that extra coffee? I know I'd rather have the cinema, to be perfectly frank. But you can do that, and you can, when you sign up at Film Movement Plus at filmmovementplus.com, you get a free month, a free 30-day trial. But also, if you sign up using the promo code SEATS, you will get an extra 3 months at 50% off, and that is just a steal. So I would recommend right now, if you love film, if you love cinema in general, go to filmmovementplus.com and sign up for Film Movement Plus, and don't forget to use the promo code SEATS for your extra discount. And on with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes in life you just have to make your own breaks, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things, I'm assuming you do, you're listening to the podcast right now, you can basically find us wherever you find your podcasts. Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, it's all good. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe over there as well, that would be fantastic. Also, you can find us on the social media, as the kids call it. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. Plus, you can find us on TikTok at In the Seats for a little bit of fun, too. And finally, and I say this a lot, but it's the most important, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, the moving image, and basically anything else in between. Because we love to write about it and talk about it, and we love it when you come read about it. So please come on by. On this episode, we've got something that fell through the cracks a little bit, which I'm ashamed to admit because it's a fantastic film. We're talking a little bit about the film Holler, which takes us to a forgotten pocket of southern Ontario, southern Ohio, excuse me, Freudian slip, but it's southern Ohio where American manufacturing and opportunity are dying up. And a determined young woman is trying to find her ticket out, and she gets it when she's accepted to college. And alongside her older brother, she joins a dangerous scrap metal crew in order to pay her way. Together, they spend a brutal winter working the scrapyards during the day and stealing valuable metal from the thriving factories at night. With her goal really, really close in sight, Ruth finds that the cost for an education, especially for a girl like her, might be a little more than she bargained for. And she finds herself torn between, the hopeful future and the family that she's going to have to leave behind. It's a fantastic, true-to-life film from writer-director Nicole Riegel, and it's starring Jessica Barden, and it is a wonderful, wonderful film that is on most video-on-demand platforms right now as we speak, and I cannot recommend it enough. But we talked with Nicole just about the origins of the story and the making of the film, and we had a fantastic talk, which I certainly hope you enjoy, because I know that I did. Well, I mean, obviously, first off, thank you for the time today. I really do appreciate this.
Of course.
Congratulations on the movie. I loved it. I mean, walk me through, I guess, sort of the initial sort of inspiration for the film, because it was a short first, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, it was a short. The short was very different than the feature. It's more of a sort of, now in retrospect, it's more of a directing sample. But yeah, I mean, where would you like me to begin? It's been such a long journey.
Oh, give me the whole thing.
The whole thing. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I started this about 5 years ago, and I'd made shorts and wanted to graduate into, making my first feature film. And I wrote the script, wrote many drafts of the script I over the course of years. And I then, pursued financing for the film. And at the time it was, and still today, it's really challenging to get financing for an independent film, but it was particularly challenging as a woman to get financing for an independent film. And that took years to find. And I would say about 70 plus people rejected the film for various reasons.
Ooh.
And yes. I think even people who helped me on the film, who help people, producers, sales agents who help get films, put together for independent filmmakers, even thought that was kind of a treacherous number of people to reject a film. And I kept going, and in that journey, lots of people told me maybe move on to something else. And I couldn't, because this is a semi-autobiographical story about my pursuit of an education. And I wanted it to really be the first film to come out of Appalachia that's made by a young woman who actually comes from that community, and can speak to it in a really nuanced way. And I didn't feel like I was seeing that growing up. And I felt like my community was a place that people went to for research, or they went to as an outsider to bring that story to Hollywood. And a lot of young women like myself are not really given the opportunity or the resources to get behind the camera and talk about Appalachia and where we come from in a really nuanced way, and really show the beauty of the natural beauty of the place. And so I couldn't move on to something else. I had to make this film. And one day at the end of that long list of rejections, I Googled who gives money to first-time women filmmakers, and a familiar name popped up, and I called that person and asked him about the company. And he said, I should set a meeting for you. And he did. And a week later, after years of rejections, the film was fully financed by a company that was created to give financial backing to women filmmakers. And I'm really grateful for that. And then after that, things moved really quickly. And we went into, that was maybe 2018, we went into pre-production, and then went into production in 2019 for 19 days. And we made the film in a polar vortex. We were literally filming in a blizzard. And after that, it was 6 months of post-production. And we were accepted to so many amazing film festivals at South by Southwest, Toronto. And leading up to that, the pandemic hit. We had already finished the film, thank goodness. But then COVID, hit the world. And then I went through a sort of virtual festival circuit, and here we are. So that is the very short version.
Well, no, it's a good story, because I mean, I love that you brought that up, because I mean, there is such nuance to the story. And I mean, whenever we see stories out of this region, and it is always tends to be the male perspective, or if it is the female perspective, it tends to be one that's a little more downtrodden and maybe abused or not pleasant. But this actually had a bit of a nice, this had a bit of at least sort of an uplifting vibe to it. And I mean, I think that
Thank you.
I think that really comes through in Jessica's performance. Can you talk a little bit about finding Jessica, just in sort of nailing down the right person for this role?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted someone who came from a working class background, and that can be really challenging to find in Hollywood. It's definitely there, but it's just really hard to find. And because I wanted someone who is, in a scene thinking about, would my character do this? Well, maybe she can't afford to do this. Someone who already has had to think that way in their life, and or someone, I'm not a big believer in that you have to have the exact same life experiences to play a certain role all of the time. But what Jessica brought to this role, as someone who comes from a working class background in England, was that she was constantly thinking about those choices for her character. And our first meeting was about our backgrounds and our upbringings, and really bonding over that. It was like we had sort of lived a similar life in two different countries. And I sort of met her before, the Netflix show Into the Effing World had really taken off. So it was interesting over the course of making this film. I mean, she was attached to it for 2 years. It's a passion project of hers as well. It was really interesting to sort of watch her become famous over the course of making the film before it was released, and to have her show taking off and gaining so much popularity.
That's wild. And I mean, it's such a strong female casting, especially with people like Pamela and people like Becky Ann, who are these sort of fantastic character actors who never quite get enough sort of recognition on the grander stage. Like, how important was it for you to sort of really sort of have people willing to dive into the material? Because I really got the sense that everyone was on the same page watching this film.
Yeah, I mean, Becky Ann Baker is one of those actors that I think is sorely underutilized.
I agree
She's
wholeheartedly, by the way.
she is a tremendous stage actor. I also watched her in a play in New York called Cardinal with Anna Chlumsky, and she's just tremendous in it. I mean, she's tremendous in everything, and to be on set with Becky's inspiring. She brings so much experience to a set, and she's just down, like she is just so like here's someone who has more experience than everyone on the entire film set and myself included, and she's just down to go to a factory and cut up scrap metal. Like she is just a true artist. I'd love to work with Becky Ann Baker again. I would love to see Becky Ann Baker in leading roles. I mean, she's just so underutilized.
Now, I mean, there's something I got to ask, because I'm curious just in terms of how, because like you said, this is semi-autobiographical and you want it to be very representative of sort of where you grew up. But I was so struck by one particular scene, with Jessica's character just handing in a paper to the teacher and she's late, and it's like, "Oh, I'm going to college." It's like, well, no, you're not. And I mean, to hear a teacher say that just felt very kind of shocking. Like, I'm kind of curious how sort of based in reality is that, especially when you're growing up in an area like that, to go like, no, go to trade school, it's better for you.
Yeah, that scene happened to me exactly like that.
Oh,
That you know, that's exactly what happened to me. The only shift was that it was a guidance counselor, and the expectation was that I, as a very angry kind of punkish teen girl who wanted to be a film director, uh, would not get to do that. That was not a reality, not just in my own mind, but that was not a reality in the minds of the school system, because they don't get a lot of kids who say, I want to go be a film director. How do I do it? And they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to guide a teen to do that, because they're lacking those resources themselves. And so I think, the big bad guy in the film isn't a teacher. It's not Hark. The big bad guy in Holler is the system, that all of the characters are trapped in, including the teacher. And it's their circumstances. And, when that happened to me, that's something that really, obviously is an open wound and has stuck with me throughout my whole life and driven me in many ways. But as I've shared the film with people, a large number of young people, women and men, have approached me about something similar happening to them. And that's been really moving for me to hear.
well, and I mean, I think it was just sort of the cyclical predetermination of it all that really sort of sunk in, and how this is the way it is and it's not going to change. So just
Yeah.
sort of adapt to it. And I mean, how sort of endemic is that, not throughout all the systems in a place like this? Like, is it sort of, is it common, or is it just a question of it's so ingrained that people don't know to look anywhere different?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's exactly that. It's that it's so ingrained they don't know to look anywhere different. I This is a controversial open secret sort of thing to say, but I think Collar's a film where that should have us really talking about it. And it's that art, but especially filmmaking, has always been a rich kid's game. It's
Yeah.
always been a rich kid's game. You can just go write a poem, you can do a painting, but filmmaking requires film, cameras. It's easier today. You have a phone, but you have to have those tools on your phone. Film schools cost money. A crew, it's millions of dollars, or at least, even if you're doing a short film, it still costs money. There's still money. You can't go do it for $20.
Mhm.
It really costs a lot of money and a lot of bodies and a lot of resources to make a feature film. And it's not something that young people in Appalachia have access to, and we don't talk about that. And if they don't have access to it, that means they're not making films. And if no one's encouraging them, that also means they're not making films. And if they're not making films, if people like me aren't making films, those perspectives are not in the media that we all consume. And it doesn't mean that they have to be independent dramas, like could be in horror films or blockbusters, but those perspectives are not in the stories that we're consuming.
I was also really so struck by sort of the visual aesthetic of the film because on one end, it's like you're in this very stark environment, but it's also got a real beauty to it as well. Can you talk a little bit just in terms of sort of designing sort of the visual style that you wanted the film to have?
Thank you for mentioning that and for saying that. It means a lot to me. That was a visual goal of the film, was let's show the natural beauty of this place. Let's not show desaturated images of sad swing sets. And let's not show that those exist in that area, but those exist in a lot of areas of the world. Let's show how beautiful this place naturally is and that it's home. And I actually think that great beauty is found in a scrapyard, and the film is set in a place and about people who feel left behind. And the scrap trade that is a way that a lot of people there earn a good living, is predicated upon what is left behind and what is found. And I think my point of view is, the person behind the camera and the person who grew up there, is that it's quite beautiful. I think Appalachia is really beautiful. They have beautiful mornings when the fog's rolling in. I think great beauty can be found in those scrap yards. And that's just my unique perspective on that region. And I wanted to shoot it on super 16 millimeter film because it makes everything feel very visceral and tangible. And it's a film choice that is often left behind, just like the subject matter.
Well, and there's an honesty to it as well, because we never got the sense that you were staging some of these beautiful shots or that you were trying to force sort of the beauty of the region down our throats. You were just letting it sort of come in naturally. And I mean, Super 16 is such an interesting choice. Like, for you, was that always the design? Because I can imagine on a first feature, wanting to shoot on film, you might have had a little bit of pushback.
Yeah, it's we could have so many conversations about the color on it, the grain, the dirt, the depth of field, everything you get from aspect ratio, all these wonderful things you get from Super 16. But as far as your question about pushback on it, there was a lot of pushback on it. I went down this road with quite a few producers who didn't want me to shoot on 16. And when you're making your first film, you're hungry, you want to get in there, and anyone who wants to produce your movie, you're like, yes, produce my movie. And I think over that process, I realized how important it was for me to be a filmmaker who shoots on film, how it is a part of my DNA. It's a part of my voice as a filmmaker. It doesn't feel like it's mine without that. And so I really dug into that and set a rule for myself that if producers say no to film for whatever the reason, they're not the producer for me. And that worked. It made the process really slow for me. But when I found the producers who made Holler what it is, they had no problem with me shooting on film. They did question me creatively, about why I needed it. And I think that's important as a filmmaker. Like, you shouldn't just get everything you want handed to you.
Right.
You should be able to defend all of your choices because it makes you a stronger filmmaker. You shouldn't just choose things to choose them because they're cool. I don't think every film needs to be shot on celluloid. It's what fits your voice. And I'm glad that they pushed me in that way. They weren't saying no to film. They just wanted me to be sure of it. And another way they pushed me was that they laid out the realities of film. Like, here's how much it costs, and here's how many labs are left in the United States. So where are we shipping it to? Here's the 3-day delay. And they laid out those realities. Here are the days that you lose by choosing to shoot on film. And I made that choice.
Well, I think you made the right one because I mean, the Super 16 really does sort of evoke the, like you say, it's an area that has been left behind, and these are characters that have been left behind, and we get that warmth and that sense out of the grain and out of sort of the look that shooting on celluloid does bring to the film, and I think it's vital. I think it was absolutely vital to this piece.
It was vital. If I'd shot it digitally, it would have
It
looked
would have
really
looked fake.
clean. Yeah, it would look faked. It would have looked clean. And then one thing that I'll say to any like aspiring filmmakers who are listening to this is that you will be told by producers, what about live grain? What about digitally making it look like film? I think just shoot digital or shoot film. I mean, you can try to make it look like it.
Right.
You will never truly achieve it. Do the camera test if your producer wants you to. Jump through all the hoops and do it. But at the end of the day, you have to have a like come to Jesus moment, and you as a filmmaker say, I am someone who shoots on 35 millimeter. You are not a producer who wants to do that. Spend no more time trying to convince that person. That's it. You're
Yeah.
just different. That's it. Like, that's something I wish I knew earlier on in the process, and that I had the confidence to do that. But that's only a confidence you get once you finish your film.
Now, this is a silly question, but I always like to ask it. Can you think back to sort of the younger days and like, was there a movie or like a moment in your life where sort of the light switch went off for you and went, okay, I want to be a filmmaker, I want to be a storyteller?
Yeah, it's not a silly question at all. Thank you for asking. I actually used to work in a movie theater in my hometown, and I would sweep up popcorn and sell tickets and candy and mop the floors. And at the end of every movie, I'd have to go in and clean up the popcorn and watch all the ending credits. And I saw a lot of amazing movies for free that way. But I would just watch all of the ending credits, and I couldn't figure out how do I get from here cleaning up popcorn in theaters to like directed by Nicole on the screen. Like, I was a world away, it seemed at the time, from that. And that whole experience of just working in that movie theater and watching movies and watching all of the ending credits, like I didn't know what a boom mic operator did. I didn't know what a producer did. I didn't know what a cinematographer did. I didn't know. I like studied all of that the best I could in libraries and books and whatever I had access to at the time. But it's not one movie. There are many movies. Like the film Wanda really inspired me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the experience of working in a movie theater and watching all of those names, like I remember, like every time I did that, every week, I really wanted to be a film director, by just watching all those films every week projected on the big screen.
Well, I love it. Thank you for being a child of the movie theater, and I can't wait to see what you get up to next. And
Oh,
especially, I
thank
want to
you.
see it in a movie theater because
Yes,
I
yes.
this is a fantastic film that I want everyone to see it. I can't wait for what's coming next for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait to talk to you again. Thank you for
For
this.
sure. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.